Chapter 10. Harry Spider's First Date. Jennifer Bush smiled.
"At last, you're here."
But then she frowned.
"Where the hell have you been?"
"It's a long story," puffed Harry, still very much out of breath, having ran all the way up to the old church. "But anyway, I'm here now, and that's all that matters." In his haste to meet Jennifer, he hadn't had time to be nervous, but when she smiled again, that was it. The alarm bells sounded. My God, she's gorgeous, and she's here with me. He had to collect himself quickly, as even he knew that romancing a young lady was mostly bluster and front. So he smiled a film star smile, or so he thought, and pretended that he was the lead in a romantic movie, and he reached for her hand. And even though it was warm and clammy, and actually a bit sticky, she politely never mentioned that. He started to lead her away.
"Where are we going?"
asked Jennifer. "Follow me, and you'll find out," said Harry, as he took her to a not-so-romantic outbuilding that was attached to the side of the church. But this came as no surprise to Jennifer.
"Why are we going in here?"
she asked anyway. Harry looked into the cloudless sky.
"Oh, it looks like rain, so we can't be too careful, can we?" "Oh, I agree,"
said Jennifer, also looking up at the cloudless sky. And so they disappeared into the outbuilding, and there was no turning back now. Jensen and Simon were spying on Jennifer and Harry through a handy gap in the church wall. Dippy was observing Jensen and Simon spying on Jennifer and Harry, and he was finding it fascinating. Real people behaved completely differently to imaginary ones. Real people were so much stranger. Dippy just wished that he could be that weird one day. Jensen waited until Jennifer and Harry were out of sight before standing up. "Right, men, this is it. No time for big speeches. But what I do want to say is, if we don't come back, well, it's been fun. And if old Adolf himself should show, then let him have it. And remember, men, victory or death. Right then, let's go." He turned around to see that Simon and Dippy had already gone. Men, hey, wait for me, men." So he scurried up the church path to join them. As they sneaked around to the back of the outbuilding, the gravelled path of the church crunched under their feet. "On the grass, men, or Adolf will hear you," whispered Jensen. They moved onto the grass and began walking again, but somebody's footwear was squeaking loudly. "Hold it, men. Now walk one at a time." They did, and of course it was Dippy's black plimsolls that were the squeaky culprits. "Private Dippy, consider yourself on a charge and report back to barracks." Dippy had no idea what Jensen was talking about, so he just smiled and stood there. So Jensen clarified. "That means piss off, Private Dip. There's nothing for your eyes here anyway, so go on, off you go. Sod off." Jensen was still finding it very difficult to be nice to Dippy, and Simon and Jensen continued on alone. They climbed swiftly and silently onto the outbuilding roof, as only 14-year-olds can. The sun was now at its lowest in the evening sky, and the long shadows it scattered from the boys were projecting onto the church wall in full view of Harry and Jennifer. Harry saw this and quickly grabbed Jennifer and spun her around to shield her view. Then he decided that now was a good time for a romantic speech to melt Jennifer's heart. So he sighed suppily and began. "On the day that you were born, the angels got together and decided to create a dream come true.
So they sprinkled moon dust in your hair of brownish, and starlight in your eyes of blue. That is why all the boys in Braithwaite follow you all around, because just like me, they long to be close to you. All of them. And yes, it did bear more than a passing resemblance to a carpenter's song, but Jennifer didn't know that, so it was fine.
"Oh, Harry, that was lovely,"
she cooed, and puckered up, ready for a kiss. But Harry had already taken the initiative.
"Hey, what are you doing?"
she gasped. I'm unbuttoning your blouse. What does it look like?
"Well, aren't you going to kiss me first?"
Harry knew his friends would be watching, so he had to appear cool. Do I have to kiss you first?
"Yes, you bloody do,"
replied Jennifer in no uncertain terms, and she kissed him hard on the lips. She broke off and looked at Harry with a well-practiced, goo-eyed expression.
"I don't do this kind of thing with just anybody you know."
Harry felt flattered and kissed her again, but Jensen just sniggered and whispered to Simon. "She said the same thing to me last week." "Of course she did, man." "She did, Simon. I'm telling you." Just then, Harry's stomach rumbled loudly.
"Harry, what's that noise?"
moaned Jennifer. In his haste to get there, Harry had forgotten to eat his tea. And by the way, tea is Yorkshire talk for dinner. He kissed her quickly to hide his embarrassment. Then a loud, exaggerated kissing sound came from up above. Simon and Jensen sniggered.
"Harry, do you have to make that noise when you kiss? It's a little bit off-putting."
"But it wasn't me who oops. Nothing, Jennifer." He kissed her again, and this time there was another noise from above. And his stomach rumbled a second later. "Oh, double pardon me."
"Harold Spider, what the hell is wrong with you? It's like being here with the local brass band."
"I heard that the other night she was here with the local brass band," whispered Jensen. As they continued to kiss, Harry thought he should say something romantic again. So he did. "You know, Jennifer, I don't do this with just anybody either. And that's the truth." And it was the truth, because the only girl Harry had ever kissed properly was Agneta Folkskog, the blonde one from ABBA, right on the lips, on the poster he had on his wall. But the practice that had given him was certainly paying off now. And as he continued to kiss Jennifer, he mumbled, "Oh, Agneta."
"Who?"
Another," I said.
"Oh, that's okay then."
And on they went. A head popped over directly behind Jennifer. It was pulled back up and a scuffle ensued. A different head then appeared, and that too was dragged back up. Jensen and Simon scuffled again for the best vantage point, until Jensen leant too far over and fell off the roof. He landed with a muffled thud and sat up and rubbed a painful shoulder.
"What was that?"
asked Jennifer. "What was what?" replied Harry, feigning ignorance.
"That noise. What was it? You must have heard it too."
And then all bloody hell broke loose. Dippy suddenly lapsed into a huge panic attack, the sort you only have in nightmares, where you try to move but you just can't. His heart raced and beads of perspiration dripped from his forehead. He was sat against a tree and couldn't pull himself up because no matter how hard he tried, his legs would not work. He tried to warn the others,
but he had lost the ability to form words as he gasped for breath. Harry looked beyond Jensen and saw Dippy. He could see he was having problems, but he didn't know why. "Oh, what the hell is it now?" he complained. Jennifer was completely bemused, but not for long, because then they heard it. The most feared voice in the whole of Braithwaite. "Halt! Stay where you are!" The German twang was unmistakable. Harry's face turned ashen with fear. "Shit! It's him! He's here!" Jennifer was now even more bemused. "Who's here?" "It's Adolf, you know. Adolf, the church caretaker." "Run for your lives!" screamed Harry. "Every man for himself!" shouted Simon, and he jumped off the roof, but only got as far as landing on Jensen. A short, fat, but very mean-looking man appeared with brush in hand, and they scattered in all directions like fleas off a drowning dog, leaving Jennifer standing there. "Well, that's bloody charming, isn't it?" But Adolf ignored Jennifer and bellowed menacingly at the fast-retreating boys. "Halt! Schweinhunds! I have you surrounded! Do not attempt to escape!" And he broke into a lumbering run, clutching an old war wound. "Stop, or I'll shoot! Shout!" It seemed old habits died hard. And yes, there really was the odd die-hard Nazi around in those days. Dippy had at last managed to get himself moving, but he was much slower than the other boys. His asthma was playing up, and he wheezed with every stride and was soon left behind. Adolf closed in on his slower prey, then lunged, and just like that, Dippy was caught. But even though relations were strained with Jim, he wasn't going to let him be captured by a Nazi. "Run, Jim! Run! Save yourself, Jim! Run!" Adolf turned. "No, you don't. I'll have you both." And he made a grab for the invisible Jim. But of course there was nobody there, and in his confusion he relaxed his grip on Dippy. If this plan had been on purpose, it would have been genius. Harry spun around and saw his chance to snatch Dippy from Adolf. He gave the old Nazi a shove, and Dippy was free, and they were off and running again. But Adolf was soon hot on their heels, and was matching Dippy stride for stride. Dippy screamed as he visualized the stories he'd heard, stories of the torture and murder of children, and how he'd bury their bodies in the church graveyard in the middle of the night. Every second seemed like an hour as Harry and Dippy's lives flashed before them. Through the now dimming light of the evening, they approached the perimeter wall, seemingly in slow motion. Adolf was so close now they could smell the stale schnapps on his breath. The church wall loomed, just like in the World War II days of Colditz, and it was more than 6 feet high. Slightly smaller than the Colditz wall, but still, they wouldn't have time to climb it. But much worse than that was the uneven 10-foot drop on the other side, and to escape, there really was just one option left. "Jump!" screamed Harry, and so they did, launching themselves fully up the wall. And as they flew through the air, blind and helpless, into the gathering darkness, time itself stood still. The strangest thoughts raced through Harry's mind. A Christmas day long forgotten, a childhood out into the seaside, his 4th birthday party, when he'd made a complete pig of himself and ate too much vanilla ice cream and was sick, all over his cousins.
He smiled at those wonderful memories, memories he thought were lost forever. But suddenly he remembered where they were and what they were falling onto. He couldn't see it, but he knew there was hard, stony ground far below them. There wasn't much hope, and for the first, and maybe the last time, Harry thought that he was going to die.